And gentlemen, we're back. We've got a great show lined up for this evening, and it's been an interesting week seeing things go on. And make sure that the live feed is muted there as we start up here. It looks like it is. But so we're on the backup channel again tonight because, of course, the main channel has been demonetized. So this way, people can still throw up super chats and whatnot if they have questions during the show. Lloyd, if you can try to turn your volume down just a little bit so we're not getting too much feedback there. Lloyd is broadcasting from the kitchen tonight. It's just a kitchen sort of thing. You got to do a show from a kitchen. I think everybody should do at least one show from a kitchen, right? But so let's see. So please throw up any super chats. Appreciate any donations and whatnot. So this is what the third show I guess we're doing from the backup channel again. Thanks everybody who's joined, and we're going to be covering the Muslim Brotherhood Pt2 propaganda and funding, going into Huma Abedin and the USS Liberty propaganda, as well as US-Islamic funding of our education system, and debunking a lot of popular myths out there. And we're going to be showing actual economic numbers and things like that, where the money is actually coming from versus the common nonsense that's floated around out there by various groups or whatever. But anyway, Lloyd, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Jan. Thanks for having me back at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, well, if you weren't in Poland, I guess it would be a different time. So.
You're right. You're right. Next time we can do this at 5 p.m. my time, and you guys just show up at 2 a.m.
Well, 5 p.m. your time would be. Yeah, I guess it would be about 2 a.m. Yeah, well, I used to live in that part of the world, or at least near there, so yeah, I get it. I remember dealing with all of the time changes and whatnot. So anyway, I'm excited to dig into this. Last week, or 2 weeks ago with you, we were covering the Muslim Brotherhood. Of course, this is part 9 of our series on Islam. You and I have done 12 prior shows. I guess this would be the 13th show with you and I, plus 4 shows with Todd covering all of this information.
To think we planned one show.
So, 8 months later, and, over a dozen shows and months have gone by, and the rabbit hole has gotten deeper and deeper. Of course, we're constantly providing the citations on screen for everybody to fact check, so please feel free to do that. And in this episode, I wanted to mention, we're going to encourage people to look further into these topics themselves. We would like to have group participation on this research so that, we're not just the only ones doing it. We want to encourage the audience to really participate and help dig things up as well. And not only that, as the audience goes through the material, it will give them their own confidence in the research and and also so that we're not pulling your leg or something like that. Check our citations, go down the rabbit holes, yada, 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 so that for certain that this information is legit. And, it's always good to fact check people. In fact, that's the only way you can know if somebody's telling the truth or not. Are they just name calling and screaming, or are they providing actual citations that anyone can fact check and verify on their own? A contradiction is always a lie or an error. So if you find a contradiction in information, say, is it the Jews or is it Islam? What's the contradiction and who's lying? So that requires actually going down and checking the primary research and digging things up yourself. So, and hello everybody in the chat tonight. We appreciate you joining up. And but again, please everyone, start to dig on your own and provide any research that you find, because it is a lot of work for us to go through all of this information ourselves. So anyway, Lloyd, I'm going to pass it over to you. Where do you want to begin tonight?
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, I've posted a link in the chat, which is something I want to open with. It's just a brief overview of an article Everyone can look in the chat right now. They can see the link near the top. And so let me share my screen and let me minimize this, share my screen and we can begin. I will be talking about the Muslim Brotherhood and we'll be looking at some of their activities. And I think people may be surprised at what they find. So let me share my second screen. Okay.
It's coming up here. Hold on just a second. There it goes. All right, now I can see it. So we're looking at the article on the left side of the screen, Embolden Islamists Call for Theocracy in America.
Yeah. So I've posted the link in the chat so people can click on that link if they want to read the article and see the video. But this was clipped from a Middle East Forum article. And it talks about the emboldened Islamists call for an Islamic theocracy in America. It says the Muslim Ummah of North America. Now, don't forget, when you join Islam, you join the Islamic Ummah, right? You become part of the Islamic community or Islamic society, the Islamic nation, right? And so they see themselves as one single group, and not just a social group, a political group. So I had their 2019 annual convention in Philadelphia, right? Speakers claimed that Islam required believers to gain political power, to impose Islamic doctrine on America and fundamentally reshape American society, right? I remember there was a past president that was talking about reshaping American society. So Ayman Hamous, executive director of the Muslim American Society, you may remember from the document that I had previously on the Muslim Brotherhood, I showed there was a list of 29 original Muslim Brotherhood organizations. The Muslim American Society is one of those. And they're an affiliate of the Muslim Brotherhood. He stated that at this meeting, Islam is needed at the spiritual level, at the social level, and at the political level. So if it is wrong for the American religious right to want to impose their religion into politics, how would it make it okay for these people to impose their religion into politics? Movita Johnson-Harrell noticed that she does not have an Islamic name, called on Muslims to occupy every space of this world. Nihad Awad, a co-founder of the Hamas-backed Council on American Relations, or CARE, he was the guy that stood behind George Bush when George Bush said Islam is a religion of peace. He was right over his shoulder. Told convention participants it is their duty as Muslims to engage in civil and political advocacy. Islam, as we've said before, is a political religion. It's actually a form of political doctrine on par with something like communism, fascism, Nazism. It is mostly a political doctrine. Our faith is based on action, Awad proclaimed, arguing that Muslims on the political sidelines are not true believers. Georgia State Senator Sheikh Rahman urged Muslims to get involved in local politics, insisting they have the responsibility and should do what is right for this country, implying that Islam is what is right for America.
Yeah, and never mind, they could return to their failing third world Islamic countries if they, really want to do that, but they want to come here and impose their Sharia laws and whatnot on us.
I'm surprised that the communists in the Democratic Party don't move to North Korea or Venezuela. Why they want to impose that in America? So we also have the Islamic Circle of North America. I've got their training manual for youngsters, which they teach at their version of Sunday school, which is the little the madrasa where they send the youngsters after school to go and learn about Islam. Recall the chat they had with the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood-inspired Ennahda movement in Tunisia on the best way to establish Islam on the practical level in the United States. Now think about it. If you have freedom of religion, if you have freedom of practicing Islam in America, what are they talking about? They're talking about political takeover and imposition of Islam and Sharia. Bukhari, according to Bukhari, now Bukhari is one of the major authors of the Hadith we've covered before in the previous series. Ghanouchi said there are two options to Islamize society. If a country has a sitting Muslim majority, the government could practically establish Islam as a way of life on this planet Earth, or at least in their own country. But if Muslims are in the minority, particularly in the West, Muslim organizations should promulgate Islam across society until their influence has grown large enough. What does this imply?
Boy, that siren is really loud there.
My bad. Let me close this window.
All right.
That's the penalty for living in a large city. So to finish off, I'm just going to do one more paragraph. Ghanouchi's Ennahda movement is an ominous example of the consequences of electing an Islamist movement to power. After being involved with coup attempts in the 80s, they obtained a majority in the first Tunisian democratic elections of 2011. It did not take long for party leaders to show their true colors. They legalized Hizb ut-Tahrir, a violent pan-Islamist party which seeks to re-establish a worldwide caliphate. It also maintained close relations with Ansar al-Sharia Tunisia, an offshoot of al-Qaeda, and allowed the organization to operate while permitting other Salafi extremists to take over mosques and incite Tunisians to wage jihad. These are the people you're allowing to operate freely in America, and they've openly declared their motivations.
And we're called Islamophobes for giving people the primary citations for this about their own actions.
Correct.
So, we can click on the video there and watch this person saying this, these people arguing for this type of thing as well.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I'm going to post this link once more in the chat so people can click on it and look at it for themselves. Yeah. Okay. So that's me to begin. All
okay.
Right.
You want to switch back? You got us on the screen there.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. Let me minimize that. So where shall we start tonight, Jan? I've got different sections. Should we start with the USS Liberty? Shall we, or is this, of the things we've discussed, where should you think I should begin?
Okay. Have we covered enough of the Muslim Brotherhood yet? Did we finish out the primary doc or the research document from?
Okay. So yeah, good point. Now, what I want to do is I want to show some of the practical applications of the Muslim Brotherhood doctrine tonight. I have the document, and we did go through it briefly on one occasion prior to this about what it is. You can see the documents up on the left here. What I want to do is show to the audience some of the practical applications of how they go about with their propaganda and spreading their doctrine, and basically inculcating people into believing their lies. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Also, there's a few basic lies that are constantly being told. One is that Muslims have no power. Muslims have no political power. Muslims have no money. It's always the Jews. Muslims have no power.
Didn't you know that they're brown people with box cutters living in caves? That's what I've...
Precisely, and that is the impression that they constantly want to create. So how come the world's tallest building, right, is not in America, is not in Europe? The world's tallest building currently is in Dubai, an Islamic country. They are building now what is going to be the world's tallest building. It's also in Dubai, an Islamic country. Now, I lived in Dubai for 11 years, so I know a great deal about the country, and I did very well there. So, so I know the country and I know the region very well. Also, Saudi Arabia is planning to build what is also going to be the world's tallest building. That's Saudi Arabia, not America, not Paris, not London, Saudi Arabia. So if they have no money, then how are they doing this? How come something like 7 or 8 of the world's 10 super yachts are all owned by Arabs? These are questions we need to ask. We need to look into this more closely. Why are they pushing the idea these people have no resources?
And who does it benefit to believe that Muslims are stupid brown people with box cutters living in caves? And this is an argument that I since we started this series back in January, I have heard this argument several dozens of times from people, and it's just absolutely baseless and thoughtless. And people need to think through que bono, who benefits for this belief.
Correct. Very, very true. So now some of the things that the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood has said, and here's a couple of the organizations I've mentioned: the Muslim Students Association, and we're going to discover how Huma Abedin was an active member of this organization in the US. Then the Muslim American Society, we just mentioned them in the article I just read, and CARE, we just mentioned them as well in the article I just read, as well as the ICNA. As I said, I dropped the link. Remember, Hassan al-Banna said it is the nature of Islam to dominate, not to be dominated, to impose its law on all nations and extend its power to the entire planet. Right? Establishment of a worldwide Islamic caliphate which will dominate the globe. These are the words of Yusuf al-Qaradawi, which echo the statements of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. So, any
Now,
comments or questions?
yeah, and so what we typically believe is, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but what do Muslims believe?
Do not let your enemy know he is your enemy.
Right.
So, we have discussed some of these issues, that the Muslim Brotherhood is committed to violent jihad, right? Allah is the objective, the Prophet is their leader, Quran is their law, jihad is their way, dying in the way of Allah is their highest hope. So, right, we know that Osama bin Laden was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, and this is their current supreme leader, Muhammad Badi. He's the current Ikhwan supreme guide. Yusuf al-Qaradawi on the right was their supreme spiritual leader. He's now been replaced with Sheikh Ahmed al-Rasuni. These are imams. These people are highly qualified in Islam. Therefore, they don't misunderstand Islam, right? And this is Qaradawi with Erdogan of Turkey. And as we know, Turkey has changed significantly under Erdogan. Okay. So, is there anything that you want me to cover in this document, or shall I go over some? Because I was thinking.
Go ahead.
Go on.
I was just going to say, we could do a quick overview of the key points, just to, for those who didn't see the show week before last, which I do recommend everybody go back.
So to recap, since it's a 35-page document, so the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in America is to destroy America. As they wrote, so as I mentioned prior, a man and a woman were seen filming the structural supports of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. This led to suspicion on the part of the police, who then managed to trace the number plate of the car. Ended up that this man skipped the country. He and his wife, I believe, skipped the country. I think he went to Qatar. Anyway, it turns out the FBI raided his home, discovered 80 boxes of documents. Turns out he had the archives of the secret Muslim Brotherhood HQ in America. He had all of their documents dating back to before 1991, where they had the strategic plan for the operations in the United States called the Explanatory Memorandum for the General Strategic Goals of the Group from May 22nd, 1991. As they quote, settlement. So that would be where Muslims who accept the Sharia and who want to impose Islam and Sharia on the world will move to a place called Hijrah. And the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process. The Ikhwan must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge, and we have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes and there is no escape. So you tell me if jihad means to eat more salads and go to the gym more often.
Well, and, meditate on a pillow and navel gaze as well. I mean, it's the religion of peace, right? But, so what you've discovered going through these documents, et cetera, is that there is a 5-phase plan, and they're at the end of phase 4 and entering phase 5. And and it's basically a 21-year plan, and they're in the last 2 years of it.
So Al Qaeda has a 21-year plan, which is slightly off track at this point, but they were aiming at 2021 for a massive uprising, right? Global uprising.
Now,
but
another
Muslim
thing,
Brotherhood is planning for 2028.
Another thing that that people need to pay attention to here is that the left, with their constant promotion of gun control and all of these things that undermine our society and our Christian foundation as a culture, they are promoting this ultimate takeover by Islam. Who does it benefit to disarm our citizens? Does it benefit us, or does it benefit our enemies? And so when we get that disarming American citizens from, from being able to protect ourselves, works directly into the benefit of this long-term plan.
Right. Let me, again, to recap, go through this. Perhaps in a different episode, we can actually tackle the document in detail. But let me take people through the 5-phase plan once more to familiarize them with how everything we'll be discussing fits into the warfare doctrine of the Muslim Brotherhood. So they have a 5-phase plan. And now in America, the Muslim Brotherhood has a 100-year plan, right? That's the original plan that they created, and it ends in 2028, which is designed to, in their words, to take over America. Al-Qaeda has a 7-part plan, which is in stage 5, possibly in stage 6 at this point. Actually, technically in stage 6, which is also designed for a coup in America. But the 5-phase plan for the Muslim Brotherhood, we are now in phase 4 as of early 2017, at least early 2017. Phase 5 is a violent coup. So phase 1, this is verbatim from the document, right? And I have posted a link in the past to a Dropbox. In fact, a little bit later on, I will drop the Dropbox link again. People can check these documents that the FBI seized for themselves, right? Phase 1, discrete and secret establishment of elite leadership. This phase has already been implemented in this country. So they established their base and started working since 1962. Phase 2, phase of gradual appearance in the public scene and exercising and utilizing public activities. It has greatly succeeded. It has also succeeded in achieving a great deal of its important goals, such as infiltrating various sectors of the government. This is verbatim what they state in their own documents. They have gained religious institutions. They've embraced senior scholars. They are gaining public support and sympathy.
How often do we hear, oh, well, the poor Muslims are victims of everything. They don't do
Correct.
anything wrong. This is all part of the public relations campaign that they are promoting against us. They want people to think that they are the good guys, the Jews are the evil guys, etc. And
Correct.
we need to be out there naming the Jew and exposing the Jews and killing the Jews per these people, rather than paying attention to what's happening. So it's very much a bait and switch program.
Right. And as part of phase 2, notice it says here, establishing a shadow government secret within the U.S. government.
So, and just to expand on that point, John Brennan, for instance, is a devout Muslim that Trump kicked out as the DCI of the CIA. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Comey from the FBI, who was outed, was another crypto-Islamist. It very much appears that Obama himself was a crypto-Islamist, and they're allowed to use taqiyya to lie about being a Christian, so they can go to a Christian church and pretend to pray or whatever and pretend that they're Christians in order to promote this agenda. And meanwhile, Obama was secretly bringing in tens of thousands of Muslims and putting them in cities all over the country to help this agenda here.
Well, that's how Ilhan Omar got elected.
Yes.
He simply moved 85,000 of her fellow countrymen into the area, and they elected her. So phase 3, escalation phase, prior to conflict and confrontation with the rulers. Through utilizing mass media, it is currently in progress. And phase 4, we are now in phase 4 of this plan, open public confrontation with the government through exercising political pressure. This is what's happening. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Linda Sarsour, and others. It is aggressively implementing the above approach and also training on the use of weapons domestically and overseas in anticipation of 0 hour. It has noticeable activities in this regard. And phase 5 is to seize power to establish the Islamic nation. So we are currently in phase 4, and this is what we are seeing. They're training in the use of weapons, and they're using open public confrontation, and they've prepared the ground for this. and a list of the organizations. I've mentioned some of those, and you've just seen what some of them are doing and saying, as I mentioned in their 2019 conference. So shall I go on and shall we talk about penetration into the universities and schools, which is one of their aims?
Yes.
Okay, so we regularly hear about it's the Jews, it's Israel, they're spending the money, and Ilan Omar was kind enough to tell us it's all about the Benjamin's baby. So we decided to go and have a look and see who is spending the most Benjamins.
Well, everybody says follow the money. So what happens if we follow the money? And what are these people covering up who claim to be following the money and not exposing this?
And my question is, how come no one else has gone and followed the money? There's lots of claims, assertions, but no one has actually started, that I've seen, people that you've mentioned before, names like Adam Green, Ryan Dawson, Jesse Spots, Handsome Twat. How come these people are not presenting facts and figures? And so I went and collected, and with the help of
Brendan O'Connell is another one. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Right. So with the help of Todd and yourself, obviously, we've been collecting some of these figures. And now these are early preliminary findings. And if the audience wants to get involved in this would be fantastic. If you dig, what will you find? So this is from the X-Files, Deny Everything. I'm going to open this document. This is a spreadsheet. And I'm going to come to the spreadsheet in a minute, okay, to show you some of this. But this is a screen cap, just a brief screen cap of funding to one university, University of California, Berkeley. Israeli interest donated a total of $13 million. Now, this would be from 2011 to 2016, including 2019, right? These are the figures that we have. But in every case, their funding was only a fraction of Muslim nations. Take, for instance, University of California, Berkeley, taxpayer money for Middle Eastern studies, $597,500. From Islamic Middle Eastern countries, $18.5 million. From Israel, $507,000. So you work that out, right? You worked it out. This is Islamic countries have donated 36 times more to one university alone than Israel has. So who is getting the benefit now? When we start going through the funding, and I will bring up a document which is called the Foreign Gifts Received by Institutions Report. Okay, and these are official government documents, and we can make these available for you to look at yourself to verify. Israel typically is funding biotech research. So they provide money. So these are, you're talking about biotech companies are funding biotech students in biotech departments at university, whereas the Islamic money goes to students in Middle East studies, students who are involved in politics, and they go to schools K through 12. So they're trying to influence the perception of Islam within educational institutions. They're not funding technology, they're funding dawah. Because I constantly get accused of being a Hasbara troll. In other words, this is effectively Israeli goodwill outreach. Okay, that's the outreach program, whereas no one discusses dawah, Islamic dawah, which is basically their political outreach program. That is their proselytizing on behalf of Islam, right? So and notice this, and we're going to come to this again. Universities took $600 million tied to Muslim nations, and we'll get to that. So let's have a look. Over the last, so again, 2011 to 2016, and including 2019, Israel has donated $53,740,000 to 8 universities, right? So they've made a total of 275 donations. Afghanistan has donated 8.89 million to universities. Bahrain, 3.4, Bangladesh, 7.9 million. And I'll skip the Cayman Islands for now. China has given $680 million to American universities. Right? What are they buying with that kind of money? Egypt, 6 million. Ethiopia, 1.1 million. Indonesia, 44 million. Iran, $80. Iraq, $44 million. Jordan, 2.5 million. Kazakhstan, $62.1 million. Kuwait, $65 million. Lebanon, $5.7 million. Libya, $2.2 million. Malaysia, $71 million. Oman, $4.7 million. Pakistan, $4.9. Palestine, over $1 million. Qatar, $1,253,000. 1 billion, sorry, 253 million, $1.25 billion. Saudi Arabia, $649.9 million. Syria, 1.3 million. Tunisia, $459,000. Turkey, $37 million. The UAE, $230 million. There have been 1,848 Islamic donations to American universities to fund political indoctrination, totaling $2.5 billion. Israel, $53 million in biotech research. Islamic countries, $2.5 billion. This is 47 times more than Israel has spent. Okay, and this is on political indoctrination of universities. Any comments, Jan?
No, so let's go back up at the top. Israel, $53 million. That's to all universities. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that 53 point. I'm getting a feedback loop there. I believe that 53.7 million is less than 3.2 billion. But some of the GDL people may have trouble with the math on that. I mean, they think that there is no influence or threat from Islam. So, am I wrong to think that 53.7 million is less than 3.2 billion?
Look, 3.2 billion is at least double $53 million.
It's at least double, or is it closer to like 46 times more?
Actually, so if you take out the communist Chinese contribution, right, that takes the number to 3.2 billion. Then you're left with $2.517 billion, right? That is 47 times more than Israel contributes in grants and funding to universities. Remember, I said Israel mostly funds, it seems to fund biotech research. The Islamic countries are funding indoctrination in politics, right? And religious studies and political studies and so on. So this is 47 times more money than Israel spends. Now, Saudi Arabia.
Well, that would explain why people think, Muslims are the poor victims.
Because, so the reason that the Islamic countries can fund $2.5 billion versus Israel's 50 is because they have less money than Israel does, much less. That's why they can't afford this money. You see, and that's why they live in caves and they use box cutters because they can't afford proper things because they don't have money. I think that's proof. See, Saudi Arabia has a GDP of roughly just under $700 billion, whereas Israel is less than half that, right? So you start combining these countries. Now, I'm going to provide now a spreadsheet. Okay, I'm going to share this across both screens, across the screen. So this is the document. Now, I will make these available. We will put these in a folder. I will make this available. I'll link all this to everyone. So you can see here this is the university, the city, the state, the date the gift was received, the amount. Let's look at Qatar. Just to Carnegie Mellon University, $77 million to one university. Okay, so that's Qatar. Now let's have a look down here. Qatar again, 74 million. 74 million, 74 million. These are the dates. So they provided in 2015, they provided just over $77 million. In 2016, 74 million. In 2017, 74 million. In 2018, 74 million. And that is 7, 14, 21, 28. That's nearly $300 million in the last 4 years. What are they buying with that money? So we'll talk about that. We'll come back to that. I'm going to change this by country of, okay, so we're going to sort this by A to Z. Let's look here. I've just sorted this by A to Z. Afghanistan. This is the money Afghanistan's been pumping in. 3 million, 1.3 million. 1.2 million, 715,000, 690,000, 400,000. Okay, in that
Now that's
order.
Afghanistan, that's supposed to be
That
tiny and
is up,
broken and insignificant.
but they're certainly funding something. You got to ask yourself what. I'm going to look for Qatar now. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the money from Qatar. Here we go. This is Qatar here. Okay, so you can start seeing the kind of money that poor, broke Qatar is funding to universities. So if we just take Qatar and I start here, and I'll just stop, I don't know, randomly at this point. What are we looking at? 1.412 billion so far, and I haven't even gone through the whole list yet. That's
So
about
several
half
billion dollars.
Yeah, and I haven't even that's only half, less than half of the
But
donations that they've made.
but you know, Jesse Slops and Handsome Twat and Albert Bishai or Bichai, whatever his name is, all these guys, they say that it's all Majus.
Well, the thing is, why are we being so? Why has no one actually gone and downloaded the documents from the U.S. government and from the universities and from the IRS and actually looked into what these figures are? How come this is not being done? How come they haven't done it? Why are they making the claim without providing any kind of
Well,
verification in
they
terms
don't
of the figures?
provide anything for anything, you know. They
Okay, Saudi Arabia.
literally don't provide any foundation for any of their claims.
Now we'll notice George Washington University is a very popular university for funding. Okay, it is a very popular university, and we'll get to that in a minute. So you can see here Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of funding that goes to Saudi Arabia. Are there any other countries you would like to see?
How about something insignificant? I know it's not going to be there, but let's look anyway. How about Kazakhstan?
They're not on this list, unless I mistyped it. Let's see. Okay, they're not on this particular list. That's on a different list.
But they aren't free of the numbers.
No, that's in this one over here. Okay, that's the Kazakhstan. $62 million donated in 54 donations. Let me see. Did I mistype that?
And thanks to Dashing Rogue for the donation just now. And by the way, folks, check out his channel after the show tonight. He had Lloyd on earlier during the week, and it was a good show. You'll want to check out that for additional information and follow-up research.
Unless I typed it wrong.
What are you looking for?
Kazakhstan, unless I typed it all wrong. Let me see when I get to
Kazakh Stan.
Say that again.
Just put in KAZ.
JK, hold on. So let me go down.
Or KAZA.
Oh, here we go. Sorry, my bad. Okay, I missed it somehow.
Okay, there it is. So it is on the list. Uh-oh. All right, so little tiny, broke, insignificant Kazakhstan. Now, are we going to discover that they donate more than Israel too?
Yes.
No kidding. What? Okay, Kenya, they're a broke little country of brown people with box cutters living in Africa, right? Or in caves in Africa, right? So the
average donation is 1.151 million. They have made 216 donations, and the sum is 62,179,000. This is 10 million more than Israel has.
Okay, and so I'm at a loss because when I look at the research that the GDL does not provide, they don't talk about any of this.
Right. So the numbers, if we start going through the numbers and we can start going through various other numbers, you'll find that the amount of money that the Islamic nations, especially these are countries that are Salafist. If you look at Saudi, you look at Qatar, you look at Pakistan, these are Salafists, these are Deobandi, and these are Wahhabist, and they're spreading their doctrine as they've stated, as I've mentioned in various of their own statements. Why is this not a concern? So let's step forward. So now, a former US Air Force intelligence specialist has been accused of espionage for Iran. Her name was Monica Witt. She was radicalized during a stint at George Washington University. George Washington University has taken $100 million from Saudi Arabia and other Islamic countries. She changed the name to Fatima Zahra. Now, people have to understand that with Islamic control, this is Islamic supremacy. You change your name, you change the way you dress. Look here, the FBI, wanted by the FBI. Once you become Muslim, you have to become Islamic. The whole culture has to change. You have to adopt Islamic practices and give up your own. See how she changed here?
Yep.
Okay, so she provided information that targeted her fellow agents in the US intelligence community, and she disclosed the code names and classified mission of the US Department of Defense Special Access Program. She provided access to several Iranian agents, 4 of them, as far as I know, who are also wanted by the FBI. So this is her, okay? Technical Sergeant, and so on. Other names, Fatima Zahra, Nargis Witt, and Wayward Storm. Right. So charge of spying for Iran. She was indoctrinated at George Washington University. The taxpayers have funded for the Middle Eastern studies $258,000. Muslim nations $100,854,398. Okay, this is from the Department of Education on Title VI grants 2019 to 2021 and contracts data 2011 to June 2018.
Now, just above that, Georgetown University has a big influence on Washington, D.C. area and politics, and $377 million there funded towards promoting Islamic hyperbole.
And most of that comes from Qatar, who are Salafist and who are Wahhabist, like Saudi Arabia. Qatar is a major financier of ISIS. Now, here's a question though. We also hear from various of these people that ISIS are Jewish and Saudi Arabia is actually Jewish. Now, if Saudi Arabia is Jewish, why aren't they calling for the destruction or the overthrow of the Saudi Arabian government?
Right.
Why aren't they calling for the overthrow of ISIS?
Great point. In fact, they're constantly defending Saudi Arabia and calling anybody who questions this Islamophobes and whatnot. In fact, Albert Bashai this week put out a ridiculous little video. He called me a descendant of Judas Iscariot and whatnot, but these guys, they can't even, it's pure slander. They can't support any of their points, but they want to deflect and avoid any actual research and substantiation. Why aren't they attacking? If these countries are Jewish like they claim, why aren't they going after Saudi Arabia? Why aren't they going after ISIS? Why aren't they going after all of these countries? They claim that they were taken over by the Jews, so you would think that they would actually focus on that, but we see nothing but them defending Islamic countries like the Nazis always have.
And defending Islam and saying that we are lying about whatever. So here's the thing. So think about this. You're looking now at 477 million plus 80 million. You're looking at about 570 million, 600 million. You're looking here at over $600 million in funding and these are political programs at these universities. We'll give you $50 million. We'll give you $100 million. Lie for us about Islam to your students. Here's a Mercs, here's a Mercedes, here's business class flights, here's nice hotels. Make up curricula that don't accurately represent the politics or the religion of Islam. Understand? So now let's look at another article. I'm going to drop this article in the comments. Again, I'm just going to bring up the comments and drop this in there so that people can read this particular one for themselves. Okay, I'm just going to since I don't have my usual setup today. Okay, I've just dropped that comment into the chat. People can look at this. This is from the Daily Caller News Foundation. It's a recent article dated December. A Department of Education program funds colleges to teach about the Arab world, but payments are going to colleges that have received millions of dollars from Arab countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Coupling the program with foreign funding is a backdoor route to Saudi influence. Faculty Okay, so the universities employ faculty or have hosted guests who are anti-Semitic, right? Universities funded by the Department of Education help shape the way
Do
US K
you
through 12.
realize you have our YouTube thing up there? If you could
Oh,
move
my
that.
bad. Sorry, let me take that away again. My bad. So besides universities, okay, schools are taking money as well. K through 12 is taking money. Okay, so now what we're seeing here is that they are teaching. So US K to 12 schools and colleges portray the Middle East and Israel are simultaneously bankrolled by $600 million tied to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other Muslim majority countries. Now, inevitably, what you find is that the charges are and the reports are that the faculty defame Israel, defame Jews, and praise Islam and Saudi Arabia and the other Middle Eastern countries, right? So the money has funded anti-Americanism and anti-Semitism in US higher education. So they have created a generation of students who hate America and who hate what America stands for, don't know its constitution, and praise Islam, Islamic law, and
Our
Islamic
country is
nations.
terrible. Our Fed, our standard of livings, our freedoms,
Yeah,
our ability to defend ourselves, everything is bad.
yeah,
We need to get rid of all of that and bring in Sharia law. That's what these
yes.
leftists want.
Correct. So some of the universities hosted or employed anti-Semites, with some facing accusations of having ties to terror groups. Now, if people want to start Googling this and start looking for this information, they're going to find it. Now, 12 have received money affiliated with Muslim majority nations in the Middle East, and in each case, the money has dwarfed US funding. You've seen that typical funding from the US to these, from the government or whatever, or taxpayer funding is like $500,000. That's the average, right? Versus like $100 million. So the nations incorporated Islam or Sharia law in their governments who had an overwhelmingly Islamic population, right? So warnings have been issued of a backdoor route to Saudi influence over America's K through 12 curriculum. Believe it or not, the Saudis have figured out how to make an end run around America's K to 12 curriculum safeguards, thereby gaining control of much of what children in the United States learn about the Middle East. Muslim nations awarded $603 million to these 12 universities from 2011 to 2016, 80 times more than the allocated Title VI funding. Israeli interests donated a total of $13 million to 8 of these schools. In every case, their funding was only a fraction of the Islamic nations. Let's go through these particular schools. University of Chicago, okay, 611,000 funds from Israel, 300,000 funds from Middle Eastern countries, 5.7 million total, 603 million, and here's the Israeli number, right? So
So now for the GDL who can't do math, I'm going to guess again that 13 million is less than 603 million.
correct. Look at George Washington University, $96 million dollars.
What about the box cutters and the caves and the brown people thing and their
That,
inability to influence the West?
that's because they lacked a few extra dollars that Israel would have paid them, I think. If Israel had given them $3 more, they could have bought a couple of these. But they only had $96 million from George Washington University funded to them by Islamic nations. They needed the $3 more. Georgetown University, $343 million from Islamic countries to promote Islam as dawah. Learn this word, dawah. Okay, this is Islamic indoctrination. This is their active measures program, their political measures program. So understand, this is what we're looking at. Okay,
Okay,
now
I'm really baffled why the GDL folks and the neo Nazis aren't talking about this stuff because they should be really upset about this stuff. Or are they just part of the hate America crowd?
I agree, they must be. So let me just finish this up. So let me finish this up. I think, again, this is a subject that is wide open to investigation. People are not providing this data. Why are the critics of Israel and Jews constantly bashing these countries and the Jews, but not providing this data? Why are we told they have no money? Well, clearly they have a lot more money than the Israelis have. They are funding almost 50 times more money to spread their Wahhabist doctrine than Israel is doing. And Israel is funding biotech research. These people are funding to indoctrinate students politically and religiously. So let me finish this. Outreach
So,
coordinators.
so what you're saying then is that people are being influenced directly by this indoctrination and this funding, and this is why we see these hate America groups and these people that go around blaming the Jews for, for their masturbatory habits set all down the list.
Correct. So what happens is the outreach coordinators or teacher trainers at universities are themselves trained by the very same Saudi-funded foundations that design the materials. So the materials are designed by Saudi, and then people are then indoctrinated into this, and then they teach students, right? And because they're taking the money from Saudi and Qatar and other countries, they see them as polite benefactors, and they take the money and they smile. Anti-Semitism from colleges or their faculty that receive funding from Islamic nations. So now you've got various comments about lecturers. Holocaust denial is a form of protest. This said Brandeis, and he downplayed the atrocities of the Holocaust. Columbia University, which received $40 million from Muslim countries and 600,000 from Title VI and nothing from Israel, Iranian studies professor Hamid Dabashi said the Jewish state is behind every dirty, treacherous, ugly, and pernicious act happening in the world. So wherever the Islamic money goes, these behaviors immediately follow. University of California, Los Angeles, 2009 panel. They riled up the largely non-student audience into chants such as Zionism is racism, Zionism is Nazism, and fuck Israel. UCLA received 12 million from Muslim nations. It also received 6 million from Israel, far more than any other school, but that money came from Israeli biotech firms, while only $980 came from a group dedicated to boosting ties with Israel called the Yahel Foundation. Georgetown Center for Contemporary Arab Studies hosted a teach-in for K-14 teachers and the public on Gaza, featuring speakers who have defended Hamas. Hamas is a designated terror organization. They're a theocratic government like in Iran, like the mullahs in Iran. Okay, so now you have discussion of the Saudi agenda, okay, and they've been likening Muslims to Hispanic dreamers and invoking white supremacy. Anyone who resists the agenda is a white supremacist. And today, what are we seeing? A lot of talk about supposed white supremacists. University of Michigan, 16 million, and only 1.8 million from Israel. 2 instructors refused to help students study abroad in Israel. Now, notice the biggest funders: Qatar, 343 million, Saudi Arabia, 131 million, UAE, $87 million. So what's happening is these departments are providing, these of Middle Eastern studies, provide one-sided, highly polemical, which is anti-Israeli studies, basically. So they do not allow debate on the Middle East and do not allow debate about Israel. And they are basically all pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli. And so when you take this money, these instructors come in, and this is what happens. They're spreading propaganda.
I think your microphone is auto-adjusting or something. Did you make sure that you have that off?
Okay, no, I reduced the gain earlier. I will pick it back up again. So what happens is we are looking at propaganda that is bought and paid for to the tune of billions. So any comments from the audience on this? I'm going to adjust the levels again.
A couple have been astounded, but that's about it. Not anything
I'm just going to bring this back to
intelligent.
my main screen.
We've got some GDL troglodytes in there, but they don't have anything important to say.
Yeah. Well, Zero Infinity asks, how does Kazakhstan have millions? Well, they apparently do. It seems they do. They're investing in their future, right? So I mean, look, those are the numbers. Those are the official numbers. I will release these documents. You look at them. You call me a liar if you want, but this is what is officially reported. So okay, I think I've covered that topic. I think we've provided sufficient detail to say that there's something going on here that needs to be looked at.
Right, and the biggest question to me, Lloyd, is why aren't these hate groups discussing this stuff? Why do they want everybody only looking in one direction? And when you look at all of this money flowing around, and you look at John Brennan and the CIA and Tom Steyer and some of the higher ups, Samaria Salazar, et cetera, and the GDL and whatnot, and the connections to the Obama administration there, it raises a lot of question of what is the agenda of keeping people focused on this false information. So let's let's segue over to the USS Liberty disinformation.
Daybot mentioned that he downloaded the docs from the Dropbox, but it says it's somewhat unavailable. Yeah, I get the same message when I go to the link myself as well. As far as I know, all the documents are there. Maybe they've got some kind of filter that filters out some of the jihadi documents. I think they're all there, and the relevant ones you will find. So the ones relevant to what we're discussing are available in that Dropbox right now, according on that link. Okay, yeah. So let's move over to another one of the.
Now, one person did just make a good point. What is that? Mind rape art. They could easily sit back and wait for more mature adults and elderly to get a little older and die off before striking hard. The U.S. is already whittled down to almost nothing. Correct, and then you get all of these, hate America people, and we have to take care of people in other countries more than our own. We got to open the borders. We got to not defend ourselves or our neighbors first. We should put everyone but ourselves first. We should ditch Christianity and whatnot. All of that plays into this agenda long term. So, like Lloyd stated earlier, it's a 100-year plan starting in 1928 with nine years to go, and we can see where this is exactly heading, and we can see how these people are using a red herring to keep us focused in the wrong direction. If you don't understand your enemy, or if you don't even know who your enemy is, you're not going to be prepared for it. So all of these people are going to be eating crow if they're not dead in 10 years as all of this stuff goes down.
Yeah, I've just put in the chat the General Islam Dropbox link as well as the USS Liberty Dropbox link. That is not a complete listing of documents, but it does have a few, so you can start on that, and we will be uploading more documents to that. Okay, so now let's talk about one of the enduring myths, which is this is one of the
Your gain is screwing up again. Make sure that the Zoom automatic volume control thing is turned off. It always screws stuff up.
Okay, hold on. How do I find that?
Go to the up arrow for Zoom, and then your audio settings, and then it would be under there.
Let me stop sharing for a moment. Okay, hold on. So where do I find this? More.
Okay, go to audio settings. I'm showing it there on screen, and then there's a checkbox under microphone. It says automatically adjust. Turn that off.
Audio, microphone, automatically adjust. I see it.
Okay, there you go. It's one of the worst settings ever in history, and Skype uses that stupid thing too. It's idiotic.
Okay, so thanks for that. Okay, how do I sound? All good?
Much better, yes.
Okay, so everyone, if you guys can have a look, start looking into the funding issue, start looking at these numbers. I will provide these documents, the spreadsheet and everything. But clearly, the funding, the indoctrination is coming from Islamic countries, and we need to look into this. Unless you feel that getting Saudi Arabian education is just a great thing. Okay, so the USS Liberty has been one of the major propaganda coups for the people who hate Israel, people who hate Jews, and even who hate America, who want to create division within the country. But it is one of the very, very few opportunities they have to attack the relationship between Israel and America, and they've made the most of it. Okay, and they have lied about it left and right. Now, short version. Okay, this was during the 6-day war, right? And Israel was fighting against the Arab League. President Johnson was concerned that the US Navy would be drawn into the conflict and that Russia would get involved in the side of the Arab League. He ordered all naval assets to be moved out of the area to hundreds of miles away from Israel. The USS Liberty, unfortunately, did not get the message. There was a failure in the US communication system, and we'll be going through all of this in detail. And it ended up in the middle of the war zone, not knowing that it should not have been there. And because it was in the wrong place at the wrong time, close to where a warship had just been, which was shelling the Tel Aviv, it was attacked. As soon as the Israelis realized the attack, and this is just a summary, and I'll be going through the detail, they broke off. They apologized. They immediately provided assistance. This has then been made out to be something that it is not.
Now, if you
So
go by what, and the attacks on this automatically dismiss anything that the official investigations say as a conspiracy theory. And of course, they don't supply any evidence as to why. They actually supply second and third-hand opinions of it, but they don't deal with the actual facts. And when you start going through the facts, here one of the biggest things that we realize is that the victims of the USS Liberty were all paid about $150,000 by Israel for compensation, and their families were paid. The families of the 31 killed were paid like $3 million each in today's money. But why would Israel pay for the apology and say, here's compensation for our wrong? And if it was intentional malice, it doesn't even make sense.
yeah, so I'm going to go to the summary. Okay.
All right.
So it is one of the very few areas for anti-Israel, anti-Jewish interests to attack the U.S.-Israel relationship. Okay. Notice the Liberty was not attacked with anti-ship weapons. Okay, those aircraft were diverted because they discovered that, what the hell is this ship doing here? They diverted planes which attacked using air-to-air weapons, right? If they wanted to deliberately sink it, they would have used bombs to drop onto the ship or the planes. The reason the planes were called in was that the Liberty was cruising so fast that those ships in the Israeli Navy couldn't catch it. So they called in the Air Force because they couldn't catch the Liberty. They assumed, therefore, it was the Egyptian ship which had been shelling the shore, essentially fleeing the scene. Understand? So it was a case of mistaken identity. It was friendly fire. It was unfortunate. It was very tragic, but it was an accident. So if their intention were to sink it, they would have used anti-ship weapons. The Navy could not catch the ship. They called the Air Force for help. The patrol boats, the PT boats, the torpedo boats only caught up a while later. Now, the reports that an Israeli pilot speaks of an American flag on the ship forgets, okay, that statement is from a recon plane 40 minutes after the incident. And also the ship failed to receive five messages telling it to remain out of the war zone by 100 miles. Every other ship was taken out of the area, except this one that didn't get the memo. So the formal finding is that the attack was a friendly fire incident due to mistaken identity. There have been 10. Now, I've seen claims that people say there weren't any. Well, I've gone and collected dozens of documents. There were 10 official United States investigations and 3 official Israeli inquiries that have all established the attack was a mistake. Okay, there's the fact that it occurred in the midst of a full-scale war and there were fog of war conditions. On the day that fighting began, Israel asked, and again, there's so much documentation that can be provided here. Israel asked that American ships be removed from its coast or that Israel be notified of the precise location of US vessels. Because President Johnson feared being drawn into a conflict with the Soviet Union, he also ordered the ships and aircraft away from the area. Now, the day before, 2 days before, the United States had told formally the UN they had no ships in the area and they'd moved everything. There was supposed to be no US ships in the area. Okay, so the USS Liberty was assigned to monitor the fighting. It arrived in the area 14 miles off the coast, but as a result of a series of United States communication failures, the messages were not received by the Liberty. So on June 8, 1967, on the 4th day of the Six-Day War, the Israeli High Command received reports that Israeli troops in El Arish were being fired upon from the sea, presumably by an Egyptian vessel, which had done the same a day before. They thought the ship was doing the shelling, and the warplanes and the torpedo boats attacked the Liberty, unfortunately, killing 34 members and wounding 171. So numerous mistakes were made. The Liberty was first reported to be cruising at 30 knots, later recalculated to be 28 knots. Now, a ship that's doing 30 knots is assumed to be a warship, a destroyer. In fact, that's the signature of a destroyer. It can achieve that speed. That's why the torpedo boats could not catch up. The Israeli Navy could not catch up to this boat. They didn't have the assets to do that, so they called in the Air Force. Right? So these were 2 different military divisions that had to coordinate for this. And so the operator of the radar, which was a Sperry, it's a, darn it, I forgot, but it's a World War II radar the Israelis had. Okay, it was operated by a 20-year-old who made a mistake. The ship was at 28 knots, which should have told them it wasn't a military vessel, but still it was traveling very fast at the time, and they were looking for another warship. So a ship proceeding at that speed is presumed to be a warship. That was the military doctrine. The Liberty seemed to be fleeing the scene. Okay, the flag was drooped because it was calm. All right, and also on the second pass or the first pass, the flag was knocked down. Also, they had a 5 by 8 foot flag up, which was very tiny, and at the distance at which the Israeli jets would fire was 2,500 feet. And according to the military visual acuity formula, you have to be at under 1,323 feet to see a flag of that size. However, the attacks were also happening head on to the ship. So with the flag at the back of the ship, they could not see the flag because they were not side on. Okay, so and the commander of the ship, William McGonigal, testified the flag was knocked down on the first or second assault. So Yitzhak Rabin was then the IDF chief of staff. He had informed Ernest Castle, the American naval attaché in Tel Aviv, that Israel would defend its coast, okay, with any means, including sinking unidentified ships, and they were standing orders to attack any ship at that point. Okay, there were standing orders. That's why the Israeli military had told the US ships to clear the area or to be advised of their exact location. So now the Israeli torpedo boats identified the Liberty when they got closer. And unfortunately, the captain had issued a stand down order when the boats came in, but one of the sailors didn't hear the message and fired on the torpedo boats, which then caused the torpedo boats to fire back. And unfortunately, that's when one of the torpedoes hit the ship, killing the bulk of the crew. All right. So that killed 28 sailors. Now, the Joint Chiefs of Staff investigated the comms failure and noted that the Chief of Naval Operations had expressed concern about sending the Liberty so close to the area of hostilities. 4 more messages were sent instructing the ship to move away. So, due to a combination of human error, a high volume of comms traffic, and a lack of sense of urgency regarding the movement of the ship, the messages were not received. Okay, so Israel sent abject apologies and requested information of any other ships near the war zone. The Israelis immediately contacted the US authorities in Israel and the US president and took corrective action. Okay, but omitting these details has allowed people to lie in depth about the incident. I'll pause there for a moment. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Here we have the situation of the fog of war. It's in the middle of a war where and the USS Liberty should not have been there. And then, of course, the whole thing is painted like it was peacetime and the USS Liberty was just sailing by and Israel went out after them. It's like, no, it was in the middle of a heated war. And you have all of this stuff going on. There was an Egyptian ship shelling from there the day before, and they're trying to take down this ship. And not only that, but the USS Liberty was an intelligence ship. And
it was a warship. It's legally a warship in a war zone. And also, now there's a claim, for instance, that, but in the morning they identified the ship. Well, the ship was at a completely different location. If it is steaming at nearly 30 knots, right, it was not in the same location in the afternoon that it was in the morning, right? And it was overflown by sub hunters who were looking for subs. So it was a different branch of the Air Force, not the Navy, and it had moved. So now you had multiple different parts of the Navy that were an Army and Air Force that were looking for this damn thing, and they had to collaborate. Different people were involved at that time. So where it was in the morning, it was no longer, and who had dealt with it was no longer involved with it. So so now the Israeli government paid over $3 million, which in 2015 dollars is $22.5 million in compensation to the families of the dead men. And they paid a further $3.5 million in $69, which is about $25 million which is about, as Jan said, about almost $150,000 to the wounded. Okay, it then also paid settlement to the U.S. military or the Navy for the damage to the ship, plus 13 years of interest. This is a link to the actual. I'll provide these links. Okay, so according to the U.S. Naval Court of Inquiry and the NSA, okay, the order to withdraw the ship was not sent on the radio frequency that the USS Liberty monitored for her orders until 3:25 Zulu, which was several hours after the attack. There was a long series of administrative and message routing problems. The Navy said a large volume of unrelated high precedence traffic, including intelligence intercepts, were being handled, and this combined with a shortage of qualified radiomen contributed to delayed sending of the withdrawal message. The reason the ship was there was a fault by the US Navy.
So even though it was the fault of the U.S. Navy, days before the U.S. Navy had supposedly ordered all ships out of the region, and the USS Liberty is there in a heated war when they're not supposed to be there, Israel still paid compensation for the error.
Yes, yeah. In fact, Israel accepted complete responsibility for what happened. They took complete responsibility. Remember, they admitted fault immediately as soon as the captain on the patrol boat saw that, oh my gosh, it was an American ship, not an Egyptian ship. And they took complete responsibility. It only turned out later that the reason the ship was there was a fault on the side of the Americans. And that's why they weren't guilty of any crime, in the sense that this was culpability also in terms
And
of
so
being there.
they're, 51 years on, they're still trying to paint this. People are still trying to paint this as a war crime when
Yeah,
all of the investigations and all, and you can even listen to the pilots in the recording
yeah,
saying, "Uh-oh, we just fired on a U.S. ship." And so all of this stuff has been made public. As soon as the pilots figured out what they had done, they took corrective action. Everybody took corrective action along the way, but it's still painted as a war crime, and that it was malicious. And
correct.
and then you have these there's a couple people, former sailors, Navy sailors that were on the ship, who try to omit and deny every single bit of evidence
Yeah,
to the contrary, and they don't provide sound reasons. They'll say, "Well, this author refused to show up to our
yeah.
heated
Well,
discussion, and therefore he didn't show up because his
yeah,
research is bunk," right?
we've looked at some of this, and I can tell you, I can bury you in documents. I can bury you in documentation. So, a couple of things. A lot of smoke. Unfortunately, vision of the ship was obscured because there were lots of cans of, I think, diesel gas on the deck, and the guns from the planes, they shot at the cans. And of course, because of that, there was a lot of black smoke, which obscured. You can see here black smoke rising vertically and black smoke, if I think here, and you can see some. So there was a lot of black smoke obscuring the details of the ship. So it was very hard for the Israelis to see exactly what the ship was. Okay. Also, it was a wind still day, so the flag was drooped. The flag was not flying. You can see the smoke raising vertically here. Okay, so there was gas cans on the deck. Also, the attack aircraft, as I said, breaks off at 2,500 feet. Okay, and they were head on to the edge of the flag. Now, notice this photograph here. This just above here, that is the Israeli Mirage. Okay, that's how far away the Mirage was. This was taken from the deck of the ship. Notice they're firing from the front of the ship along the length of the ship. You see these white lines here? You see these white splashes here? These are the bullets from the Mirage hitting the water and walking into the ship. So they're walking the bullets up onto the ship. Each Mirage, I think, made 2 passes on the ship. There were 2 Mirages, each made 2 passes. So these are the shots. You can see how far away. Now, they could barely see the plane. Do you think the plane could see the flag? No. Okay. So the Joint Chiefs of Staff investigated. Okay. As I said, human error, high volume of comms traffic, and lack of urgency. They also, okay, so now this is a declassified. I'm going to bring this up on screen in a second. This is an NSA report. This is declassified. You can go to the NSA yourself, okay, and you can download this off the NSA website, okay, yourself. This is a declassified National Security Agency report, top secret, declassified. There's more than one, right? And it says here, the knowledge that the tragedy resulted not only from Israeli miscalculation, but also from faulty US communications practices. Okay, and it repeats it here, and the details of the American communications failures. Okay, so You can go and look at that yourself. Now, notice the House Appropriations Committee in May 1968 says, conclusion, the use and operational capabilities of the defense communication system is nothing less than pathetic, and the management of the system needs to be completely overhauled. Now, to finish up, I'll do this one section and I'll leave enough pause and then we can finish the section here. So numerous books have been written by people who were on the ship at the time. And yes, what happened was tragic, and they were obviously understandably angry. You know, Americans lost their lives, families lost their fathers and husbands. But books were written which omitted critical details I've been able to find, and I can bury you in paperwork, as I said. I can bury you in documents, which somehow these details are critically missing from a lot of these authors and so on. But there was a so they claimed that there were no transcripts and so on and so on. But there was an AWACS plane which was in the area, and this is a letter from one of the Hebrew speakers on the plane who was monitoring communications traffic for the U.S. government at the time. This is from Marvin E. Nowitzki. I know you guys will say Nowicki, PhD. So letter from Marvin E. Nowitzki, PhD, or Nowicki, published in the Wall Street Journal, Wednesday, May 6, 2001. Tragic gross error in a 1967 attack. In regard to Timothy Naftali's review of James Bamford's book, Body of Secrets, Mr. Naftali doesn't have it right concerning the book portion dealing with the Israeli attack. I know because I'm the person to whom Mr. Naftali refers as the chief Hebrew language analyst aboard the US Navy EC-121 aircraft. He says that I recall one of my teammates telling me of hearing a reference to a US flag from Israeli pilots. For the record, my teammate and I both heard and recorded the references to the US flag made by the pilots and captains of the motor torpedo boats. My personal recollection remains after 34 years that the aircraft and MTBs prosecuted the Liberty until their operators had an opportunity to get close in and see the flag, hence the references. So they only saw the flag after the attack had been finished, and then they realized their mistake. My position, which is opposite of the author, Mr. Bamford, of his book, is that the attack, although terrible and tragic, especially to the crew members and their families on that ill-fated day, was a gross error. How can I prove it? I can't unless the transcript tapes are found and released to the public. I lost them in a desk drawer at NSA in the late 1970s. These tapes have since been released. I'll pause there. Yeah?
So they were found. Now, what you have from the Hate America crowd, from these infantile so-called thinkers, is that everything that the U.S. government says all the time, 100% of the time, without exception, is a lie. Therefore, through this, what they do is they create a series of false assumptions, and then they say, therefore, the Jews are guilty and this is a war crime.
Yeah. I mean, when we spoke with one of the authors, one of the people who was actually on the ship, I mean, the only thing that he could say was that every single piece of government documentation is a fraud. Literally.
And he constantly used, just to, for full disclosure, yesterday Lloyd and I talked to somebody.
Don't mention the name.
I'm not gonna mention his name, but we talked to somebody who was on the USS Liberty, and all he could provide was diversion, name calling, and excuses. Anytime we asked him for any specifics, he shut up, changed the subject, or avoided answering. He in fact refused to answer any questions whatsoever.
For instance, we've got anonymous users saying Johnson recorded everything in the White House except the USS Liberty incident. You know what? That's dumb. Give us proof. Provide us with actual proof. We asked this person who'd written a book on the Liberty for evidence to refute the evidence that I was presenting. He could not. He did not. Okay. Now here's a couple of things.
He did name call though. I'll give him that.
Yeah. So he was okay. Granted. So the Gulf War, friendly fire accounted for 24% of the U.S. dead. Okay, during the Gulf War, 24% of the U.S. dead were due to friendly fire, which is proof there that friendly fire does not happen. Mistakes do not happen. Now,
wait. So 24% of U.S. dead is from friendly fire, and that's proof that mistakes don't happen, at least to the Hate America crowd, I think is what you mean.
Correct. I mean, these solid researchers that, I mean, so now one of the accusations is that how could the Israelis mistake the USS Liberty for apparently this Egyptian ship? That's one of the questions. Now here we have a color image. Sorry, am I sharing my screen? Yes, I am. So here
Yes.
we have a rare color photo of the USS Liberty during the attack, as you can notice. Oh, sorry, my bad. That's not the USS Liberty. That's the USS Stark, which was shot by two Iraqi Exocet missiles in the midst of the Iran-Iraq war. 37 crew members were killed by this Iraqi pilot, more than on the USS Liberty, and the pilot shot the USS Stark, which was a spy ship, exactly like the USS Liberty, because he thought the US frigate was an Iranian oil tanker. Who's heard about the USS Stark? Nobody. I've asked several people, they've never heard of it. No one cares because Israel didn't shoot it.
Well,
In other
so
words,
so
if you're
are
from
you saying that there's been other mistakes, but the GDL and neo-Nazi groups and all of these hate America people,
don't care about it.
they only care if it happened by Israel? That's correct? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So this guy now, as you know, oil tankers are all of them converted navy destroyers because oil tankers all look like naval destroyers. That's why it was easy for this Iraqi pilot to fire two missiles and kill 37 people, and no one cares about it. So I'm sorry, I got to wonder about this. Now, notice people don't care about this incident. Now, here we have the USS Stark. This is the outline of the USS Stark. I grabbed this off the web. 445 feet, 136 meters. This is the smallest oil tanker that you can get. As you can see, these two are identical. I can see how he could make a mistake.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But
As you can tell.
it wasn't Israel.
I mean, if I superimpose these two, you can see it's incredibly easy to make the mistake because the two ships look identical. They're the same size, the same color. They've got exactly the same structures, as you can tell. I mean, so if an Iraqi pilot, you know, could make this mistake, then, well, in the middle of a freaking war, yeah, someone could make that mistake too. So now, so do you remember the game show Oil Tanker or Military Warship where you won money for telling the difference between the two and nobody won because they couldn't?
No, I don't.
Yeah, neither did I. So this is the USS
I
Stark.
I did play what's that game Battleship when I was a kid. You sunk my
Yeah, true.
battleship.
So this is the USS Stark. It is 70 meters shorter.
Maybe
Okay,
the
it's like
pilot didn't have Battleship as a kid.
true. This thing is more than 200 feet shorter than the smallest oil tanker. Look at this silhouette. Look at that silhouette. And he thought it was an Iranian oil tanker and he shot it. And he killed more naval troops than died in the USS. And no one cares. No one mentions it. Now, of course, let's talk about North Korea, who's obviously also our friend because we don't care if they kill naval sailors and take our boats. So the USS Pueblo, another incident no one's heard of. The North Koreans shelled the USS Pueblo, killing two sailors, kidnapping the rest of the sailors off the boat, and they took the US, which is also a spy ship. These are all three spy ships. They took the ship, and the ship is still docked in North Korea. It is now a museum that people go visit.
So how come they aren't outraged against Korea?
Because obviously they're communists and they love their communism. And you can't. Besides, these are brown people. It would be racist
Right.
to say anything bad
Well,
about them.
there's, and we're pretty far in. There's this hack in the chat, Blop Jones. He
Yeah,
said, "Have fun selling your fellow Americans lies. Keep letting your boy Lloyd talk for you." Am I okay, really? I'm letting you
delete
talk for
him.
me. No, we do
Just
research. Any intelligent person could do research, but the problem is you GDL people aren't intelligent. Like I gave Jesse Slops. I gave him primary
oh no, this guy's
documents.
criticized me in the past. He's not our friend. I mean, this guy's not our friend. He's
But
made
I had given Jesse Slops primary citations. All he had to do was click on the link, and he was too incompetent to even
yeah.
click the links to verify
Well,
it.
so how did these amazing researchers overlook all of these incidents? How did they overlook the actual financial evidence that disproves their statements? So yeah, well, whatever. Thanks, Bluff Jones. Bye bye. Um, so, so we have these incidents, okay, where two other ships were attacked and one ship was actually seized. Okay, in one incident, more U.S. Navy people died, and no one cares about it. Now, notice this incident. This is with two U.S. F-15s shot down two U.S. Army UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters. They'd left from the same base that were being managed by the same control room. And in this case, the US Army UH-60 helicopters were on a peaceful mission, and apparently each one was covered with 6 US flags. Okay, each Black Hawk had 6 US flags on it. And the controllers who were sitting in the same control room didn't realize that the Black Hawks were friendly. They'd taken off from the same base, they're being managed by the same controllers, and other controllers vectored in the aircraft, and they shot down 2 Black Hawk helicopters, killing 26. This mistakes happen. Okay, mistakes happen. So notice interesting question. What you fear says, can you research 9/11 and figure out why there was such a strong Israeli presence during the attack on the towers? Well, that's a leading question. You are saying there was this, therefore start from that premise. How do you know your premise is right? Understand? If every single thing that I found that the truth community has been saying has been a lie, and all of these people
Air quotes, truth community.
yeah, and if they're so incompetent, then I think that everything else must be in some way a mistake, a lie, or these people are just incompetent.
Well, what they'll say is that the dancing Jews are proof of the, how many of the Israeli presence there. And never mind, how easy would it be to pay some college kids to go dance around and do this stuff, and then use that as a scapegoat point to say, look over there at those guys. It must be Israel. Meanwhile, and you have documentation of this, and we haven't shown it yet, but you have documentation of Muslims in Islamic countries celebrating on
Yeah, thousands of them.
every 9/11, celebrating the collapse of the towers. But of course, these people won't ever show that information. They won't show the Islamists celebrating 9/11. They'll only show the dancing Jews.
Yeah, and yeah, agreed.
You've gone
Now,
full shill. Yeah,
yeah,
when you're too stupid to pay, to verify facts, all you can do
but
is
you're not
name
allowed. The
call.
thing is, you're not allowed to question the holy doctrine. You're not allowed to say, "Well, there's some questions and problems here."
You've sold out.
So,
You've gone full shill because that's probably Matthew North or Jesse
yeah.
Slops or one of
So,
these guys.
so let me finish. So the USS Liberty. These are the American investigations. The U.S. Navy Court of Inquiry, CIA report, the Joint Chiefs of Staff called the Russ report, the Clifford report, the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. And notice the House Appropriations Committee says there was a Navy communications foul up and no conclusion regarding Israeli actions. Okay. So, but they admit the fault was with their comms. And then again, the House Armed Services Committee, critical of Navy communications. And of course, we have the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence in 79 responding to a book by Liberty crewman James Ennis, who made claims that the attack was intentional. They found no merit to his claim. In other words, his book was trash. And this is the same for all the other authors. Okay. So, National Security Agency says the ship was mistaken for an Egyptian ship. Now, the best answer we've had to all of these investigations is every single one is a fraud. Every single one. Every page is a fraud. Everything. So I have very detailed documents on this, and we can
Yeah,
show one step by
yeah,
step.
and they say just believe the official story. Of course, they can't supply any evidence on. As we've just walked them through the evidence, they have no counterintelligent argument. It's just, we hate America. Government always lies. Therefore, the Navy taking responsibility for it themselves isn't a valid answer. We just have to hate our own country, and by the way, hate the Jews too. That's that's the
Right.
sum of the thinking capacity of these people.
So I presented various facts and I've presented various information, and I will present a ton of documents. You need to present your evidence. All you have is assertions and empty claims. No, but it's this. No, That's how a 5-year-old argues. You people are 5-year-olds.
Yeah, see, look, this is what they do. Again, it's always these fake, empty accounts, So, it's one of 8 of these GDL hacks.
You two little fish, have a nice day. Um, so, so this is so I'll so I provided a certain amount of, given the time, amount of information regarding funding. Should
Can
we?
you pull your camera down? You're cutting off the top of your head, or pull it out and pull it out of a share screen for a minute.
I will do so right now. Shall we? I can briefly also talk about the Fed if I just want to go into that, so we can start maybe throwing in some questions about what people are saying and why. But I mean, this part is wrapped up. I can have Huma Abedin, and we can look at the Fed. That was my next thing, is Huma Abedin.
Yeah, I would say Huma Abedin, because it's going to, you know, how long is the information on the Fed?
Um, let's do 2 minutes. How about that? Just do like a
Just hit
very
the main points, because all of
so these
the
are
hate America, the Muslims are the poor victims. We
yeah.
gotta support everybody else but us. Crowd
So
repeats
okay.
these same points.
So the thing is that what we want to do is we want to start looking at the evidence. So we started looking at the numbers. Remember, Ilhan Omar said it's all about the Benjamins, right? So we are looking at the Benjamins. So we've decided to start looking at the actual, and on the right-hand side of the screen here. So now look, this is early days. We're still busy working on this. And if the rest of you want to get involved, start looking at the numbers, we might find a very different picture than what is commonly being presented today by the narrative, right? By the Jew haters, really. So just briefly then, top 10 holders of US treasuries by country. Israel is not amongst them, but notice Saudi Arabia is.
Okay, so
Okay.
wait a second. So you're saying of the U.S. Treasury, Israel isn't even in the top 10?
Israel is number 31.
31. Wow.
Yeah,
And China.
number one. Communist China is number one. Now,
What
notice
about
you have,
Ireland and Brazil there?
you tell me, you tell me. Um, you know, obviously these are both Jewish countries, right? So Cayman Islands and Luxembourg are two to look at. Now, previously, for some reason now, due to President Trump, he has changed the reporting requirements at the Fed and the Treasury. So he has made the reporting a lot more transparent, and we know more about it now than we ever did before. So they have to publish more data. And previously, Saudi Arabia was always lumped in with OPEC and never broken out separately. It's only now that they've been broken out separately, and they always keep their funding to the level that they remain just outside the top 10. They always tend to be 10, sorry, 11, 12, 13, 11, 12, 13. In this case, at this point, they came in at number 10, but they always make sure they adjust and drop out of the top 10. Now, Cayman Islands and Luxembourg are two interesting ones because these are private funds and no one knows who's really investing into these funds. But it has been known that Islamic money is invested in these locations and they could then by proxy be investing into these funds. Now I'm going to zoom into this document here. This is from May 2019. These are major foreign holders of treasury assets. Okay. So these are the people who have shares in the Fed, basically, essentially, in US treasuries. China, number one, right? Ireland, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Cayman Islands. Okay. These are 229 billion and 216 billion. Then you've got Saudi Arabia. Okay. And then if you keep going down, so now we've got UAE, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Israel is all the way down here at 31 with only 36 billion.
But wait, I thought the Jews controlled the Fed. How come they're down at 31?
Because they're going to make up some idea of secret money that's invisible, but it's fully
Wait a
filled below
second. But
ground.
look who's at 33. I mean, does that mean that Poland controls the Fed?
Secretly, yes. Yes. The Philippines, look at that, 30 billion. You tell me. Understand? So there are discrepancies with the claims of the unlimited amount of money that Israel apparently has. So we need to start looking at this. We need to start looking at these claims. The Arab nations are investing and spending a lot more money. Why are the supposedly truth tellers not discussing this, not disclosing this, not looking into the money? So that wraps up that portion. We'll leave that at that for now.
Okay, so again, they're wrong. So it's amazing. I mean, are we finding anything that these hate groups are right about? Are the proponents of these bogus claims?
Dude, these people can't even spell correctly. So the secret presidential, oh my God, his citation is the secret presidential recordings, whatever. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about Huma Abedin and the Muslim Brotherhood to end off with. And she's been named Hillary Clinton's shadow, right? Others have called her Clinton's surrogate daughter. And also, she was the vice chair of Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. This is a fairly short section. I want to raise some important points.
Just again, a second. Either Jesse Spots or Matthew North is back
genitals
with
is here again.
the genitals. These are people hiding behind a fake troll accounts, pretending that they're not the paid shills. But genitals, get it? So I mean, this is the stupidity of Jesse or Albert Bashai or handsome twat, whatever, Yes. So I mean, this and see, look at this, and so these people will actually go around and tell you that the Jews are behind all the porn, and then what they do is they use porn photos for their avatars. No issue there, folks.
The Jews made me do it. I was alone in the toilet, and the Jews made me do it. Moving on. Okay, so let's
And then we'll hear how those accounts were actually legit. I hear that all the time. Oh, but these commenters are legit. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So now, Huma Abedin, Huma Mahmoud, which is obviously a Jewish name, was Hillary Clinton's deputy chief of staff when she was working as Obama's Secretary of State. And she handled day-to-day operations, as well as she answered and handled Hillary's cell phone. She was considered by many as the most powerful person in the campaign organization. Now, Abedin was at one point the only official channel to Clinton and was elevated to the most senior member of the Clinton campaign. Okay, now her involvement and her power that she had, the influence that she had, became public once the State Department released thousands of emails from Clinton and her aides when it was discovered that Hillary was using a private email server. Okay, so following the release, Abedin's role became known. Okay, she had full access. Now, what people don't know is Huma Mahmoud Abedin lived in Saudi Arabia for 16 years. She and her family relocated from Michigan to Jeddah, which is 53 miles from Mecca, right? Which is the Jewish major religious hotspot, I think. So Saudi Arabia, she moved to Saudi Arabia with her parents, who are Indian Muslim and Pakistani Muslim. Her late father, Sayyid Zainul Abedin, was Indian. Now, we need to note that Sayyid or Sayyid is an appellation, or in other words, like a descriptor, a Muslim claiming descent from Muhammad. Right? So to have Sayyid in front of your name means that you claim that you are a descendant of Muhammad. And we also should note that Abedi, which is her surname, is one who serves or worships Allah. Abedin is the plural, means worshippers of Allah, or servants of Allah. So her mother, Saleha Mahmoud Abedin, was born in Pakistan. Okay, so Abedin's father started a journal, an international journal called the Journal of Muslim Minority Affairs. She worked part-time at the journal between 1998 and 2009, and she came from George Washington University. That is the same university that has received hundreds of millions of dollars in Qatari and Saudi funding and produced the traitor that sold US data to Iran. And oddly enough, when she was at university, she worked for the Muslim Students Association, which was the very first Muslim Brotherhood organization established in America in the early 60s. Now, she married ex-Congressman Anthony Weiner. Okay, that's them, the happy couple, as you can tell. Questions have been raised.
And he's also, as far as I know, being investigated for pedophilia as well, and all kinds of stuff on his laptop. Yeah.
So now questions have been raised about
Islam does defend and promote pedophilia. So
Yes. Okay. So she's been investigated, okay, because she accepted outside income as a consultant while working for Clinton at the State Department. She had income from an outside consulting group while working for the government and receiving a government paycheck. Hillary Clinton signed off on it, and she made Abedin a special government employee. She broke the rules for her. Okay, so Teneo Holdings was this company, which is a private consulting firm with close ties to the Clinton family. Abedin also did not disclose the special employment arrangement or the $135,000 she earned from it, which is violation of the law mandating that public officials reveal outside income. Okay, so this was hidden, and this is against the law. Now, it has been noted by many that it is extremely rare. Okay, in fact, I should know, living in the region, I've seen this so often. Islamic women are not allowed to marry non-Muslims, especially a Jew, because the animosity that Islam has for Jews. If a Christian man wants to marry a Muslim woman in a Muslim family, he has to convert to Islam, because the Muslims must increase and the non-Muslims, the kafir, must decrease. So Dr. Anwar Shub, the highest ranking faculty authority at the College of Sharia and Islamic Studies in Kuwait, formally declared that Abedin's marriage to Rina was null and void under the dictates of Sharia law, which explicitly forbids marriage between a Muslim woman and a kafir. And in fact, Shu'aib classified the Abedin-Rina union as a form of adultery. Now, she's connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. Why would she marry a congressman? Could anyone tell me why? Especially a Jewish congressman. Now, I want to raise a question. Pakistan, again, another issue that does not come up. Pakistan was stealing data off Hillary's server. And in fact, multiple Pakistanis were hired by the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, through Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who were then assigned to be the IT staff for multiple congressional staff. Okay, so Debbie Wasserman Schultz got them top security clearance. They copied data from the congressman. They put them on Huma's server. That data was then transferred to Pakistan, and Pakistan donated millions to the Clinton Foundation, quote unquote, charity. Multiple different countries that were stealing data off Hillary's server donated money to the Clinton Foundation. This was selling data for money. So Imran Awan and his family, who are Pakistani, and her mother is Pakistani Muslim, were banned from the White House computer network in February 2017. However, for some reason, Debbie Wasserman Schultz never fired them. Right? They were called an ongoing and serious risk to the House of Representatives, and a server containing evidence had gone missing. There was unauthorized access, and logs were falsified. Okay, so now Imran Awan split his time between several Democratic lawmakers, and he was arrested in July, I think 2017, while trying to board a flight for Pakistan. They got him on bank fraud charges, but they never ever questioned or investigated his theft of American political data. So she failed to fire him. They got him for 300,000 worth of bank fraud, but never ever dug into that whole issue. I'll pause there for a moment. Any questions?
no, none from the audience either.
Okay, so Hillary, now she studied at George Washington University, which, as we know right now, is a hotbed of Islamic indoctrination because it's receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in funding and has already turned out one traitor to the US who was in intelligence. Okay, so within 2 years, she becomes an intern for Hillary Clinton, and now her family business is owned by the Muslim World League. It was started in conjunction with someone who works in the Muslim World League, and I'll talk about that in a moment. We'll finish this soon. Saudi Arabia's global organization, the Muslim World League, promotes Wahhabi Islam, Islamic supremacy, and wants to implement Sharia law worldwide. Now, what's interesting is that the Muslim World League reports, and I took these Google shots a couple of days ago, they have an office at 46 Goodge Street in London. And so is the family business of the Abedins is also at 46 Goodge Street. Let's see, Muslim World League, 46 Goodge Street in London. Go to Google right now, check it for yourself. Here we go. Institute of Muslim Minority Affairs. They both share an address. Let's go to
Can
the
you
web
zoom
page.
that a little bit so people can see?
I'll just go to the actual web page, and
All
here
right.
we see 46 Goodge Street. So the Abedin family business is a front for Saudi Arabia. So Saleha Abedin, Huma's mother, and her brother are still employed there. Abdullah Urman Asif, this man here, is one of the founders of the Muslim World League, and he was vice president of the Saudi Shura Council. In other words, he provided advice to the head of Saudi Arabia, to the Sheikh of Saudi Arabia. He was the head of the Consultative Assembly, the advisory body that advises the Saudi king. So he's known, his organization is known to have funded, which he founded with his organization is known to have funded Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. Okay, they were declared guilty of funding Al Qaeda terrorism by the US State Department during the Holy Land Foundation trial, which is the largest terror funding trial in US history. Right? Now, notice, so Huma worked, okay, so one of the organizations I mentioned earlier was the Muslim Students Association. She was an executive board member for 3 years on this organization. They were the first Islamic Muslim Brotherhood organization in America, right? 2 years after she left, Anwar al-Awlaki, the Al-Qaeda member and the preacher to the 9/11 hijackers, became chaplain of the MSA. Huma Abedin was an executive board member. Her mother, okay, is a leading member of the Muslim Sisterhood, the women's division of the Muslim Brotherhood. Their goal is to destroy Western civilization and replace it with Sharia like in Saudi. Hillary Clinton has traveled around the world to meet with Saleha Abedin. This is her mom here, this woman here. And that's Hillary Clinton. They've met several times. Saleha Abedin means virtuous woman who worships Allah. She's a leading Sharia activist. She published a book called Women in Islam. She supports the death penalty for leaving Islam. She supports the legal subordination of women under Sharia and the participation of women in violent jihad, according to her book. The book discusses the religious merits of sexual submissiveness, child marriage, lashings and stonings for adulterous women, and even female circumcision. So Hillary Clinton has flown to meet with her many, many times. And a point of note as I finish, the Clinton Foundation has received more than $25 million from Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia funded 20% of Hillary's election campaign in 2016. So Saudi Arabia has massive influence on the Clintons. They've penetrated into the government, especially in the presence of Huma Abedin and Hillary Clinton. Okay. Hillary Clinton, now there's more about this. I mean, I didn't have time to go into all of this, but she's working with a global movement whose goal is to destroy Western civilization, and she's taking money for it. Huma is the link between all of this, right? So she has never distanced herself from terrorists, from radical views, from the Muslim Brotherhood. She just goes silence, okay? So now Abdullah Omar Nassif, and Abdullah means slave of Allah. Okay, he created the family business as a partner with her father. Okay, and we need to start asking some questions about this connection. Oh, and by the way, okay, this is a little bit older, and this guy he was eventually jailed in Saudi Arabia for crimes. You know, this is the guy that owns more stock in Twitter than Jack Dorsey. Just thought I'd mention
So,
that.
I'm just going to show this meme
I'm gonna
here.
stop there.
I'm going to show this meme here just because it's funny, but in regard to Jack Dorsey and Twitter and the Prince of Saudi Arabia, here's, all you need to do is change this to Twitter. I'm sure the same is likely true for Facebook as well, though. But so the Prince of Saudi Arabia has controlling stock in Twitter and not Jack Dorsey, the founder of it. So Mr. Winter says was talking to his landlord on vacation in Turkey. We got to talking. She's a secular Muslim, considers herself full Turkish, though DNA says she's also Ital and Armenian. Her husband is a Russian Jew from Poland. She said she is a fan of Ataturk. Any comment on that?
Ataturk is the guy that he basically secularized Turkey. But all of his reforms, because Turkey was the caliphate, was the biggest caliphate in the world. You know that Islam had the largest empire in history. If you look at the countries conquered by Islamic conquerors, they had the largest empire in history, right? So in 1924, he abolished the caliphate, and 4 years later, in response to that, in protest, the Muslim Brotherhood was formed to reform, to recreate the caliphate, right? So the Muslim Brotherhood was formed 4 years after that. And of course, one of the aims of the current president of Turkey, Erdogan, is to return the glory of Turkey and the caliphate, which is the Islamic, basically an Islamic world. A caliphate would be, to turn the world Islamic.
So let's see. Lee Stefan Michaels posts, quote, and I think this is regarding to Huma Abedin, as she's been exposed to the foundation and what her father's doing with his post-presidential life, says Hillary Clinton's deputy chief of staff, Huma Abedin, quote, I think a light switched on. It's going to be Chelsea's responsibility to carry that torch. This is the core of what her grandmother encouraged her to do, embrace her inheritance. And, of course, inheritance meaning Islam. And, the murder of all kafir, non-believers, and whatnot. So, if any of the shills out there hiding behind the fake accounts can manage to muster enough brain cells to find primary evidence to contradict our work, we'd love to see it. So far,
why don't they talk about the connections with these people? So they always claim they have no political power, they have no influence in government. This woman was in the height of the government.
Right. Well, because all they have to say is you're a shill, and then that's as far as their argument goes. They can't, they don't have enough brain cells apparently. Scraping 85 IQ points.
All this is you're a shill, right? But why don't they tell us how many others are in government? How many others are stealing data from the government, selling it to Pakistan, passing it to Saudi Arabia, right? Why are they simply saying, oh, you're a shill, exactly, without examining the evidence? Why are they insisting it's only Jews when we've got proof this woman was in tight with Hillary, was at the top of the U.S. government?
I have a question. How come most of the top people in the GDL are actors?
It's like Zoolander. I wonder if they can turn left.
Yeah, well, wow.
So look, that's my story. I mean, I think there's enough information here to start raising some serious questions.
Yeah.
So the funding issue is a lie, right? They have access to the government. There are others. There are so many others. I don't have time to do all of this. But why doesn't the truth community start digging? Why are people trying to prevent people from digging?
Right.
Why can't those other truth people who are so into Palestine, Fakestine, Adam Green, Ryan Dawson, others, why aren't they digging into the numbers? Why aren't they revealing this information?
And why are these GDL people, Jesse Slops, Handsome Twat, Matthew North, Albert Bashai, all of these people, why are they so invested in attacking anyone who is investigating the facts? That's the real question right there. And these people are losing credibility. We had Jesse Slops going around with a bag on his head the other day doing some shaming ritual, but, I mean, these guys are on the losing side. I've read the end of the Bible. I know who wins, but anyway, anything else to add before we go?
No, I think that's enough for now. I mean,
wait. Did we forget some? Okay, so you did send some evidence yesterday. Now, anonymous user, as annoying as this person is, do Islamists have major economic beachheads besides tech and oil? And the answer to that is yes. Do you want to post up that thing, or was that Todd's evidence?
That was Todd's. Oh, Sharia banking. You need to start looking at Sharia banking.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so where was that evidence? Okay, goodness. I mean, I don't want to take.
Maybe he's legitimate. But
Todd, can you post that in the chat? If you're still in there, can you post that?
Yeah, let me find that as well. I'm busy looking for it right now so that people can actually look at this.
I didn't want to take his evidence because it was a great find, but 600 billion in
Sharia finance.
Wall Street financing is our Islamic banks. So yes, it is a big area and growing. And that was an older article. I
But
don't.
here we go.
Okay.
I'm going to share this very briefly, so we'll just quickly do this. I'm going to move this over to the other screen, maximize it, and
Because
then I will.
only Jews have banks. That's the official story.
Yeah, correct. So we need to start questioning hot trend of 2017 rise of Islamic banks on Main Street, USA. Okay, and it goes on here so everyone can see this.
But those Islamic banks must be victims of the Jews, if you believe the
Well,
hate
don't forget,
America
they
people.
claim in their documents they're going to infiltrate the media, education, and politics and law enforcement. And well, Riyad Mohammed, that's clearly a Jewish name, you know. So what they have is the so where did he talk about the growth? 2,000 Islamic banks have become a force to be reckoned with. Islamic banks' capital grew from 200 billion in 2000 to close to $3 trillion in 2016. Says Ibrahim A. Ward, Jewish name, professor of international business at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. This figure is expected to go up to $4 trillion. There are now more than 300 banks and 250 mutual funds around the world complying with Islamic principles. I think that $3 trillion, which is less than I make in a day, you know, they don't have money.
Yeah.
They don't have money.
Well, they're brown people and they have box cutters and they live in caves. So, I mean,
Yeah,
if you're done sharing that, let's go back to the
yeah,
regular
I will
screen. But
stop there. So look, I mean, I think people need to start looking at the evidence and start realizing that the story,
that
you
they're being
know,
fed as a bunch of crap, and they're having their chains yanked by a bunch of frauds,
liars.
and liars in the GDL who are pulling literally lying about every detail. We even found anything that they've told the truth on in the 8 months since we started the shows?
No,
No. And then, like Albert Bishai did this slanderous hit piece, or I think it's Albert Bitchai, did a slanderous hit piece against me the other day saying like that I was a descendant of Judas Iscariot. But this guy actually claims he's part of the truth movement. They've never provided any truth whatsoever. And then
some of this,
they go around doing the very same tactics they say are being used against them.
yeah. So I think we've established these people have infiltrated government at the highest levels, and there are more of them. They have money to burn. Israel, under no circumstances, can compete with the kind of money these people are throwing around, right? And we need to wonder why people are not talking about this. So I think we've established that there are questions here that need answering. And if people start digging, they're going to find things that contradict the narrative. And the whole point of the lie is to simply defend the communists and defend the Islamic infiltration into the government.
Yeah, I think they're well funded to do that, as we've seen before. Maybe we should do a show one day focused just on the hierarchy of the GDL and the money and funding behind them and whatnot. There's plenty of interesting stuff there.
Yeah. So that's it for me, and I'm done. It's a long show. It was longer than expected.
All right,
But
what is it? 4 a.m. for you?
yeah, 3 minutes to 4 a.m. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll let you go to bed. Good night. Thanks everybody for your support in the chat. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the people who kept it on track, and thanks for all the mods and your help as well in there.
Well,
Much
Grace is
appreciated.
correct. Islam is a political system with Sharia as the world law. Remember, Islam is supposed to be preeminent across all the world. The whole world is supposed to be dominated under Sharia. That is the international government, is Sharia, and the international religion is Islam.
Yeah. Well said, Grace. Thanks for that. And we're going to sign off. Good night, everybody. Thanks for your support. Please go to logosmedia.com, support the show. You can click on the links down at the bottom there. Also sign up on Patreon for support. We can't do it without you. We are currently still demonetized. Hopefully we'll get that up before long again. You can send Bitcoin donations down there to the link provided under the show. Much appreciated,
Yeah.
everybody. And
I will put links in the comments and stuff, or maybe Jan can put it in the description for some of the documents that I've had. I've given Jan the docs as PDFs, and I can give them to you to download and check all the spreadsheets I looked at. We can look at that. Those are legit documents. So yeah, I didn't type out several thousand lines, I can tell you that.
All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great
Bye.
night. Bye-bye.